Hey everyone, it's Anthony here at Talk and Review, and today I'm coming back at you with another fragrance review. So today's fragrance is one that I managed to acquire at the beginning of lockdown, which feels like a million years ago now. This was something that came along with my initial purchase, and it is from the house of Terence Hughes, and the review today is going to be for Violet Delirium. So this was something that came with my initial purchase. So I initially purchased Slut, which I will be covering in another review. Now at the time, Aaron was running a promotion to get this out there because this was initially an inspired kind of version. I don't think it was an original take. I think since then he may have reformulated this and changed it around a bit because it is on his website to purchase for itself. But it was initially put out as a promotional thing because it was slightly inspired by Baccarat Rouge 540. So the presentation of the bottle is quite basic. It was going for the minimalistic look. I think that he's in the process of changing his packaging, his material, so I don't think things are going to be looking like this in the future, but this is very reminiscent of the majority of his bottles at the minute with the label just wrapped around it. So let's talk about the fragrance itself, let's talk about the smell of it. Pretty much as the name says, Violet Delirium, you do get a massive kick of what reminds me of Parma violets on steroids. That's the only way that I can really describe this, and I love Parma violets. You get this really quite tangy kick at the opening of it, which is a little, it could be construed as a little off-putting, don't get me wrong, but once that dies down after about 5 or 10 minutes, it mellows out into this creamy, really familiar smell. So if you are familiar with Parma violets, you'll recognize this a million miles away. And then when you remember that it was a inspired by version of BR540, you kind of get the candy floss feel, the sweetness of it in the background as well, which comes through incredibly on this one. The longevity on this is massive. This will last all day long and you will get whiffs of it over and over again all throughout the day. I have put this on first thing in the morning and I'm still smelling it at 7, 8 o'clock at night. It's an absolute beast when it comes to performance. In terms of projection, it really does project like a bit of a monster, if I'm being honest. It really does. You have to be quite careful with the amount that you spray on, because if you do 1 or 2 sprays too much, it can be quite nauseating. And that's not necessarily to say that it's a bad fragrance, but too much of a good thing can be a bad thing, if that makes sense. So when this first came, I was super excited to see what it smelled like. So I banged it on straight away, probably oversprayed it. I think it was about 4 or 5 sprays, which to me is too much for the intensity of this. And I could smell it all through my house as I was walking through. And I'm not just talking about as I'm walking through within 5 and 10 minutes of it being sprayed. I'm talking about hours after. I could smell it in a room when I walk back into it that I had been in previously. So it does linger and it projects like a monster. So if you do have this, and like I said, I don't know if he's reformulated it, and if you're going to buy Violet Delirium now, it's a completely different thing, but this projects like an absolute beast. Naturally, in high heat, this is going to project even more. So when you got your high heat days, especially now we're coming into the summer, we have had some really hot days over here in the UK. Not so much recently, it's been more like monsoon season, but when we do get the hot days, it's probably even going to be pulling back from what you're used to with spraying as well. So maybe drop those spray habits down by 1 or 2, because this will be an absolute beast. I think you could get away with it in the summer. To be fair, it's one of those that I don't think that it's going to be season specific. I don't get a particular season out of it, if I'm being honest. It's not screaming out to me that it definitely belongs in the winter or the summer. I think you just have to be a little bit careful in the high heat with the amount that you spray. So maybe more for spring, autumn time. It's more of an all-rounder for me, if I'm being honest. Other people might disagree and say that it might be too much in high heat, but I think it's an all year round really. Probably less so in winter, simply because I just don't feel that comforted by it. Obviously in winter you want to feel comforted with the colder weather and you reach for more gourmandy. Now this, like I said, with it being Parma Violet-y, could be construed as gourmandy, and with it being the candy floss element of a BR540 as well, you could say that it's slightly gourmandy, but not to the degree of a huggable, warming gourmand that you're used to for the winter time. I think this fits more into the mass appealing fragrances that Aaron has got. Obviously he's got some very divisive fragrances out there, some of his sex range, of his fetish range, obviously that's a little bit stronger, a little bit more projecting, a little bit dirtier. This doesn't feel like it fits in that category at all, so I feel like this would appeal to the masses more than his fetish or sex range would. That being said, I don't know if what is currently out on the market on his website is the same as this anymore, and I don't know if it's been reformulated, because I do remember him saying that he didn't want to really sell anything that's like an inspired version or an interpretation of, simply because he wanted to release his own originals. And obviously with this being a freebie with another fragrance, because it was an inspired by version, I don't know if it's going to be the same. So I don't know if this is something that you could currently buy at the minute. If anyone's recently purchased Violet Delirium, let me know what you get from it as well, because it'd be interesting to know if it has been reformulated or changed over the time. It's definitely something that I would recommend though. If you like your sweet, sharp fragrances, I feel like this is right up your street. It does mellow out in the dry down to more of a creaminess, which gives it a really nice feel towards the end as well. So it's not always sharp and tangy. In the dry down, the creaminess really is quite lovely, and it just adds to the extra depth to the fragrance as well, because something that starts off really sharp, you don't want it to stay as sharp, and it mellows down into a lovely creamy scent that just stays on you for hours and hours and hours. So that covers our review for Violet Delirium by Aaron Terence Hughes. Let me know what your favourite is of his line in the comment section below. Also make sure you hit that like button, and make sure you subscribe if you've not subscribed. We've got a lot of reviews coming out in the future. I have got a few more fragrances from Aaron Terence Hughes that I'm going to be reviewing as well, so make sure you hit that subscribe button to not miss out on that. We've got a lot of good content on our movie side coming on the way as well, now that lockdown is potentially lifting soon and cinemas may be reopening. We might be able to get back into the cinema to give you some new stuff, but we are trying to keep that engaged with the live streams and everything at the minute, and also potentially getting some reviews out there for older movies as well. So if you've got any recommendations for that, pop it in the comment section below. But until then, peace. If you've liked what you've seen today, make sure you check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Also, if you want to watch any previous reviews, please click the links.